I thank the gentleman from Indiana. We have 10 members, all on the Republican side, so we're just going to continue to roll through this. But I appreciate my Republican colleagues being here for this important conversation. So, Mr. Moore from Utah, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Director, thank you for being here. Look, the CBO's updated baseline shows that House Republicans, and in order to do this, we had to win the majority back, and we did that. And we've taken that opportunity and been effective at forcing the Biden administration to agree to lower federal spending. Unprecedented levels from 21 and to the 2021 and 2022, winning back that majority, we were able to put a clamp on that. That's a positive. CBO is now projecting that the federal government will spend nearly 10% less on discretionary spending over the next decade, largely due to the Fiscal Responsibility Act that was passed last summer. That's significant, and that's a significant conservative win that we were able to lower that and trim that out of the budget for the next little while. But while it's a great step, the updated baseline also demonstrates that we have a lot more work to do. Within the next 10 years, nearly 80% of federal spending will be on mandatory spending, and our annual appropriations process will only consider a shortening and a lessening 20% of what our federal government spends each year. My legislation, the Comprehensive Congressional Budget Act, which I introduced with my colleague from Washington State, Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, would reform our budget process to better empower members to make reforms to revenues, direct and discretionary spending each year. Instead of just ignoring $4.5 trillion of our $6 trillion budget, it would actually incorporate the entirety of it. It would do kind of like what states do and why states are able to keep their spending in a responsible trajectory, unlike us at the federal government. Dr. Swagel, a couple quick questions. This year, spending on interest costs that service the national debt will exceed the federal government's spending on Medicare and our national defense. By the end of the 10-year window, CBO projects our country will spend nearly $2 trillion annually on interest costs. What are the long-term implications of the U.S. growing interest cost?
It's a budgetary challenge and an economic challenge that rising interest costs will crowd out other possible uses of government resources and then also pose a risk to our economic stability, our financial stability, to high interest rates, to job creation, to economic growth.
Every constituent that comes into my office and they've got a program they care about and it matters and they show the data, how it's been effective, and I put a graph on there to talk to them about the interest costs and what it's doing to crowd out the things that we need to be able to address. Highest inflation we've had in 4 decades following inflationary policies. I look at the American Rescue Plan as a very, very rapid bill that happened really quick without much concern for what it would do to the inflationary pressure in the U.S. and, of course, the IRA, which is much more expensive than was projected. When President Biden took office, the projected yield on 10-year treasuries was 2.5% over the next decade. The updated baseline now, that number is 4.1%. This affects not only how much the federal government spends to service the national debt, but it also ripples throughout the economy. Can you speak to how increasing interest rates affect the economy writ large, particularly families and job creators?
Yes, I can. And you put your finger on it. Families, higher interest rates make it more expensive for families to spend, to do the things they want to do, and higher interest rates affect businesses that are looking to invest and create jobs. And both of those affect the economy and therefore the federal budget.
Yeah, and the inflationary pressure in the nation right now, like with Republicans winning back the majority, we were able to put a clamp on trillions and trillions of dollars that President Biden he enacted and was continuing to push. And that simply controls our monetary policy. And our monetary policy now more under control than it has been in the last couple of years. We're seeing inflation slow down. Prices are unfortunately here to stay because of what we went through those couple of years. But we are doing our part to put a clamp on that. Last question. The CBO's recent baseline suggests that Medicare Hospital Insurance Trust Fund will be solvent throughout the 10-year budget window. In the Medicare trustees' most recent report last March, they project the HI trust will become insolvent in 2031, resulting in an automatic across-the-board cut for seniors. What factors account for the difference between CBO and the trustees' estimate? They're different. CBO, it's solvent through the 10-year cycle, but the trustees has it at 2031. What factors are different? Why can't we get a consistent number here?
Okay, no, it's an important question. We have somewhat different modeling approaches, but we also have different economic projections. Ours is more recent, so in some sense we have we probably have more of the higher inflation, which is a negative for families, but means is more more tax revenue coming into Medicare because we tax a nominal base, and so I suspect that's part of it, is that we have a slightly better revenue path than they do, maybe a better lower spending path. We both see the system as facing severe challenges. It's just a matter
Whether it's a couple of years or whatnot, it's still facing
That's
major
the big
challenges. When will the trustee address updated numbers?
Sometime
You
this
had- you know that.
spring. Sometime this spring they will put out an update.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Director.
I think
Back-
the gentleman from Utah, our deputy chair of the Republican Conference, which makes him the likely next candidate for Speaker of the House. With that,